leaders, welcome to the People Power Project podcast. I'm your host, Morgan Carey, CEO of Morgan Carey Consulting Solutions, Chief HR Strategist, and advocate for building better workplaces. This podcast is all about empowering the leader in you, whether you're an individual contributor, a manager, or a business owner, to build better, safer, and more enjoyable work environments. Together, we'll reimagine leadership by promoting accountability, supporting healing, and exploring ways to foster growth for the busy business leader. I'm so excited today because joining me is a young lady who's turning pain into power. So many of us have experienced unimaginable heartbreak and letdowns, and while this may be very common, it doesn't make it any easier. Everyone is having their own experiences in life, and I particularly love when people take those challenging experiences and turn them into triumphs, because this is what life is all about. Robin Sharma in the 5 a.m. Club says, with every challenge comes the gorgeous opportunity to rise into your next level as a leader, performer, and human being. And Kiana is a full-time employee that is doing just that. She's working as a recruiter with a national company, staffing for autism and special education programs in public school districts to support children with special needs. Simultaneously, she's a full-time stay-at-home mom. She's a certified domestic violence and sexual assault advocate in the state of Nevada. And as an entrepreneur, she is using her story and podcast called Healed, Hustle, and Repeat to help women come back from toxic relationships, rewrite their stories, and reinvent themselves to thrive personally and professionally. She's 32 years old, recently divorced, single mother of 3. Her personal experience is with domestic violence in marriage. She's from California, and she relocated to the from the East to the West Coast for healing with no leave of absence during this time. She just made the move. And you know what? She is happier than ever. She is Kiana Lindsey. Hey, Kiana, thank you and welcome to the show.
Hey, Morgan, thank you so much. I just love that introduction, and I'm just so grateful to be here with you today. Thank you.
I'm so grateful to have you. Today, we are talking about the connection between our personal lives and professional growth. And, you know, I came across your profile on Instagram and I just loved the story. I loved what your profile was exuding. And I'm so glad we have the opportunity today to get to know each other a little better and doing it on the People Power Project podcast.
Absolutely. When I saw that you started following me and you commented something, I looked back at your profile and then I started looking at everything you were doing. I go, this woman's amazing. I want to learn from her. I want to connect with her. I want to collaborate and do anything I possibly can to help as many as possible. So thank you for everything you're doing.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. We're talking about today how letting go of toxic relationships can become one of the most powerful moves you make in your career. And I just want to commend you for talking about it, because so many times we kind of go into a shell after something devastating happens to us, especially when it comes to like a romantic relationship. There's like this level of shame that comes along with that. So we almost turtle and just go into our shell and like hope for the best, and just time will pass and then nobody act like it never happened, right? And we don't have to talk about it and we just move on. What do you think that does to us when we kind of turtle, go in our shell and don't do anything with it?
Oh, absolutely. I think, even thinking about why we do that, because sometimes it's just so overwhelming, we don't know what to do. Sometimes it's like the fight, flight, or freeze.
Yeah.
And after the relationship, a lot of us just freeze. And what I think it does is, one, it prolongs our own healing, but 2, it only perpetuates the same cycles to repeat in the future of ourselves, what led us there in the first place, but also being able to really be in touch with what happened, what went wrong, our mistakes, taking responsibility for them so we can change in the future. Does that make, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Makes perfect sense. Makes perfect sense. So many of my listeners, they are the ambitious leader. They're learning to lead with grace and love and all of those things. And some of them are not just at work. I heard you are a full-time employee, also a stay-at-home mom. And some of these people aren't just learning to lead in the office and lead teams. They're learning to lead themselves. And I've often said on this podcast that you have to learn to lead yourself before you can lead others. So people are coming out out of these personal challenges or dealing in these personal challenges, like, hey, I think I want to start a business. I want to start a podcast. I want to
Mhm.
become a volunteer leader and help other women come out of these things. What
Mhm.
would you say to that woman?
I would say don't be afraid to share your story as you're going through it. I think there's a lot of pressure that we can put on ourselves or just outside circumstances where it creates this environment where we feel like we have to have arrived before we can share our story because
Yes.
it's like, okay, I made it out, here I am, all victorious. But don't feel like you need to have it all together to start pursuing your dreams because
Yeah.
sharing the good, the bad, and the ugly is going to help you heal, but it's also going to make you more relatable to the projects that you're pursuing because you
Yeah.
can voice to other women, hey, look, I've been where you've been. I
Yeah.
know how you feel. I've thought the thoughts that that you're having. You're not crazy. So I would encourage women to embrace the messy parts of their story and not feel like they need to have it all together before they start.
Yeah, that's wonderful and so powerful because again, you're right. We wait because we're like, I have to be perfect before I can exemplify anything. And the perfection, first of all, doesn't exist. So thinking you have to be perfect before you start something, you're going to be waiting for quite some time. You're
Mhm.
never going to feel perfect or be perfect enough to start. Because Kiana, take us back to like the beginning of this journey right here. What led you to begin sharing in this way?
Absolutely. Well, I think to be quite honest, what happened was when I knew my marriage was ending, I was in that freeze mode for a minute. I was in a state of shock. You know, when you're
Mhm.
coming out of a relationship like that, it takes a minute. You often go through the 5 stages of grief. That's common as well. And so it takes a little bit of time, but I've had these ideas and I know that God has put these things on my heart for a very long time. I just didn't know how to share it. I didn't know what to share. Who to help, what to do. I just knew that I was meant to impact women with my story. But after I knew my marriage was coming to a close here, I said, "I have 2 options, and it's sink or swim," you know? And I think that there is a time of healing and quietness and introspection, and I was taking that time to do that, and I actually created a workbook for myself. I was sitting in the car bawling my eyes out on the fellowship break at church, actually, and I was like, "I just need a minute. I'm overwhelmed." And so everyone's all talking, and I just went into the car because I just needed a minute, and I was just crying and just kinda praying to God, like, "God, help me. I need to figure this out for me. I need to heal." And I had the idea to create a workbook, so I did. And then after I personally went through the workbook, it was for me to help heal and, you know, figure out what was going on in my life. I go, I really want to sell this. I would like to present this to other women to help them
Yeah.
heal. And that's when it all started and started social media. I had to learn that from scratch. It wasn't a skill set I had, but I said, if this is the way of the world, using social media to reach as many as possible, let's do it.
So this workbook is available, yes? We can get this
Yeah.
workburk?
Yes.
How can
Yes.
people
Sorry,
get
I
the
didn't mention
workbook?
it. What
No,
was that?
that's how can people get the workbook?
It's actually on Amazon. I have a hard copy on Amazon. It's called Swipe Right on Yourself. And there's a digital
Oh, I
copy that I sell
love
as well
that.
on my website. And, the whole idea is to date yourself because we're so focused on sometimes other people in the dating world and dating apps. And I had to Google it because I didn't know which way you're supposed to swipe to accept someone. I wasn't familiar. I was like, okay, swipe right. If you want to match with someone, you swipe right. So the idea was that you swipe right on yourself. You accept yourself and you date yourself. A lot of the questions that we want to ask someone that we would go on a date with, have we asked ourselves those questions? So really
Yeah.
being in touch with who we are as women, becoming whole, becoming stable so that when we are ready to level up in the workplace or pursue that relationship, we know exactly who we are, what we're looking for, what we have to offer, what we want, and what we don't want, and not being sorry about that.
I love that. I have a post on Instagram that talks about romanticizing your life, figuring out how to
Mhm.
do that so you will look to yourself for the love and the experiences that you want instead of like just learning how to pour all of that into someone else. We
Yeah,
we
I love
but
that.
it's this it's so much overlap in like our personal experiences, whether romantic or not, that actually relates to back to our work lives as well. Because if
Mhm.
you are able to lead yourself, if you're able to love yourself, you're able to do those things for other people, for a team as well. So, how do
Absolutely.
you think that your relationship impacts your sense of self and your confidence, both personally and professionally?
Well, in retrospect, it really, at the time, before I really started to heal, I was very insecure because I think what I was told in the marriage and the toxic patterns that establish and my weaknesses as well, right? I'm only human. I'm not perfect. So I think that at the time I was really insecure and I was so focused on the relationship that I couldn't focus in the workplace. I
Yeah.
was so
Oh,
distracted. And it's as simple as just putting the phone down. If you're in a meeting, put that phone down. Okay. And the moment you get out of the meeting, give yourself a minute before you're checking notifications or if your phone's blowing up or just give it a minute. And so I think there
yeah.
was a lot of insecurity and a lot of distraction. But now coming out of it, it's been so refreshing because all I'm now responsible for is myself and my children, of course. So
Yeah.
being able to focus, create goals, and all of these things that no longer have to depend on another person. And I
Mm,
wish I would have learned that skill in the marriage too, you
yeah.
know, because you can do
Yeah.
that even if you are in a relationship, but being able to stand on your own 2 feet and have your own healthy boundaries and say, "I'm at work right now," or "I'm working on this project right now," or "I really need to be laser focused. Let's talk about this later." Just boundaries too, I
Mm.
think.
Do you think if you had learned that in the marriage, it would have helped to save the marriage, or you think that this is something that you learned for the next relationship?
I definitely don't think that it would have saved it because the reason I say that is I did start to learn that towards the end. That's actually the breaking point. Is once I started having those boundaries and communicating those boundaries in a healthy but also unapologetic way, it actually kind of became a threat because now I was not so focused on he was no longer the epicenter of my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's hard to find that balance when you've built a life with someone to not make them the center of it, but I think that that was the turning point because it actually became a threat. I
Yeah.
said, "No, that's not my intention at all. I'm trying to live out my goals, my calling, and I need to be focused to do that. And I want to do that as a partnership, but if we can't be partners doing that."
Yeah. This is a struggle that I've heard before and I've experienced myself, that oftentimes when you begin to work on yourself, you begin to notice, hey, something is not right here. And instead of trying to change the other person, you begin to work on you. You begin to change you. The part
Mhm.
that we aren't often prepared for is the evolution that is about to happen in you, or that does happen in you, changes who you are. And if that other person is not evolving as well, it there's now a disconnect that you weren't really prepared for. And what it seems like is that, hey, we're just not vibing, but there's a reason why you aren't vibing. And if you
Absolutely.
don't really recognize it before it happens, it's hard. It's really hard because you're so focused on developing yourself, evolving yourself, and you're thinking you're going to be able to do that in this relationship. But like I said, the thing that we often aren't prepared for is that you will evolve yourself right on out of a situation that doesn't suit you.
Mm. That was said so well,
Yeah.
and I think you said a key word, like, we weren't prepared for it.
Yeah.
So then all of a sudden, you're hit with a ton of bricks of, now my life is looking different,
Yeah.
and it gets worse before it gets better, and I applaud the couples that can figure it out and get on the same page and even just be open with their communication, like, "Hey, this is the path I'm on," and sometimes even if the other person needs a minute to evolve and get on their path and do what they need to do to meet the other person where they're at least they're in open communication with that.
Yeah.
But a lot of the times it goes back to that shelling up. One person's evolving, it's communicated, and if the other person doesn't also want to rise, I think it ruffles some feathers and it makes some turbulent
Wow.
waters.
Yeah. Leaving a toxic relationship is a major life change. Really, any type of relationship. Right now we're talking about your divorce, and so we're talking about a romantic relationship. But there are all kinds of toxic relationships that people are dealing with when they go from the workplace or their office, their business office, to home. It can be with siblings. It can be with mothers. It can be with cousins. It can be with really good friends, like friends you've had for years.
Hmm.
Deciding that you no longer want to take part in a toxic relationship is a major life change that I think doesn't get enough attention. So I'm so glad for like profiles like yours and you coming and sharing your story. What fears or doubts did you have to overcome to actually make that decision?
Oh, well, I really appreciate you talking about how toxic relationships, it's not just in, a romantic relationship. And the fears and doubts I had, well, one, of course, is am I going to be alone for the rest of my life? That's a fear, of course, that we have as women.
Yeah.
No one wants that, so to speak, or most women, I should say, don't desire that. Am I going to be alone? And now I'm raising 3 kids. And I think the hard part was that what the ripple effect of what happened, because I not only ended the relationship, but then the social circle of people that we built my whole life, my friends, our families were blended. There was a tearing of multiple different types of relationships, and
Yeah.
we did work together as well. So it was workplace, it
Oh,
was family, and it was social. So I lost pretty much everybody at that time just because the marriage had ended. It was heartbreaking. It was grief. And I think the fears was, one, am I going to be alone? But two, I was really scared to see other people's true colors come out, because I'm over here, giving my all. That's just who I am. I give my all in an authentic way to the people that are in my life. But it was actually pretty shocking to see how many other people didn't reciprocate that. And I go, man, I guess our friendship was circumstantial, you know? And that was
yeah.
tough. And that was tough. It was fearful. But then I was able to rethink, okay, everything that's being stripped from me right now is creating room for everything I need. So I had to do a lot of reframing with every relationship that was lost.
I love that you talked about the loss of other relationships along with the relationship with your husband. Uh, People, we don't often talk about that. Remember I said we go into like this shell because there's like this embarrassment, and we do not talk about the grief, the true grief that comes along with losing this relationship, not just this person, but the life that you have built around this relationship or involving this relationship. And you mentioned something really key that I hadn't really thought about, is the overlap with y'all working together. I worked with a significant other before, and that was tough. We weren't married or anything, but
Mhm.
working in the same place and then going through hardships at work, I couldn't stand it. I hated it. So what was that like? You all working together and breaking up?
Woo! Well, they happened simultaneously, which I'm grateful for. There was like, it was it was pretty traumatic, okay? And I say that with a smile on my face, because once we come out of things, sometimes in retrospect, we're like, "How? What? Oh my goodness." So it was pretty traumatic. So the day we separated was the day we both knew it was our last day of work. Like we
Yeah.
will not continue another 24 hours in this way. We can't.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
and again, that it just the ripple effect of the impact, now I'm stressed about my finances because of this relationship. There's a
Yeah.
lot of temptation to get resentful and to get
Yeah.
bitter, you know?
Wow. How do you fight that? Because this is something, this is a conversation I have with my girlfriends. It's like, what do you do with the resentment? What do you do with the need for revenge? Because we're human, right? And then everybody says no revenge because then they have these reasons why they don't want revenge. But like deep down inside, what do you do with the need to like see them get what you feel like they deserve?
Oh, I mean, it's just a real human feeling.
Yeah.
It's just real, and you have to be ready to be at a place to take those thoughts as they come, and you have to already have your mind made up. Am I gonna sulk in this? Am I gonna feed this spirit of resentment and bitterness? Or am I gonna kill it and move
Yeah.
forward? And I think that a lot of women, and including myself, it's just it feels good sometimes. It feels good to
Yeah.
just be resentful and be bitter and be like, you know. But then afterwards, it's like if you're trying to lose weight and then you go in on some Oreo cookies, like, okay, it tasted good for the set for the moment, but
It doesn't
afterward you're like,
last.
why did I do that?
It
And I
doesn't
think
last.
you're right. And after you make that mistake enough times, you realize, I don't want this.
Yeah.
This is not the person I want to be. So I would do just active activities in my brain as the thoughts would come and the feelings would come. You just take them as they come, you reframe,
Yeah.
I would pray, you throw them away, you get open and just make a decision.
Yeah, it's so much more fulfilling to me to feel like to work on myself. I am a personal development junkie, and which is
Mhm.
how I got into developing other people, other leaders, because it's so fulfilling to me to develop myself rather than try to get back at someone that I feel like hurt me. Now, I have had those feelings that, man, I wish that they would actually feel just a little bit of what I'm feeling. But what helps me get through that is realizing that someone that could treat me as poor as I feel like I've been treated in some situations, they probably don't care. So you're like exerting the energy for absolutely nothing. People who just can willingly and or carelessly hurt you and you've been good to them, you've been the best human being that you can possibly be because perfection doesn't exist, right? So you've been the
Right.
best human being that you know how to be. And they carelessly or purposely or willingly just kind of stump all over you, they probably don't care after if they were doing that in the situation, the active situation. So if you're
Exactly.
spending your time wanting and trying to get revenge for someone who likely doesn't care anyway, who are you hurting? And I'm not in the business of hurting me.
That's right.
Not in the
That's
business of
right.
hurting me. Did you feel like though, even after you made that decision, were you able to see a immediate impact in your work life or even your personal relationships after you made that decision?
Well, I would say yes to the work life because again, not all relationships look like this, but I work from home, so if it was his day off, I'm trying to work and there's tension. There's tension in the home, which means there's tension in my workplace. So
Yeah.
I did see an immediate impact there because I could just focus, I could breathe. My nervous system I started seeing changes in my body because my body was starting to relax because it knew it was safe, you know?
Yeah.
So I definitely did see impact there. And then as far as the relationships, it took some time to navigate. It really did. And I had to let a lot of relationships go and still communicate to the ones that I knew I wanted in my life and needed in my life. And I wanted to be there for them too. Just because I'm hurting doesn't justify me walking out of someone else's life. Like, well, what about them? How do they feel?
Yeah.
So sometimes it's taking other people into consideration as well and finding a new norm and a new balance
Mhm.
in those relationships.
Love that. Love that. You told us earlier about how you were sitting in your car and this idea of the workbook came to you. And that is one way, I mean, in action. Right
Mhm.
in motion, that you turned pain into power. We often talk about that. And it sounds really nice, pain into power. It sounds
Mhm.
really nice in theory, but it seems like you got really practical with it and made it happen. So,
Mhm.
what has that looked like outside of the workbook, but moving forward in your life and career?
Absolutely. Practicals. I'm all about practicals. I love them. I'm like, tell me what to do and I'll do it. I'm really good at just executing what I'm told to do. Um, Discipline and organization. Absolutely. With my time, with my schedule. And in that includes a lot of the self improvement as well, and wrangling three young kids that are
Mm,
6, 4, and 2.
mm.
You don't
Can't
have
even
a lot of extra
imagine.
time. You have to be very disciplined with your time for your sanity and for theirs. So I'm strict on that. And then also practicals too are just actually holding to the boundaries that
Yeah.
I set.
Yeah. That's key. Holding
Ex-
to boundaries. Because people will say set boundaries, set boundaries. Boundaries are so important. But then we don't talk about the accountability that comes along, self accountability that comes along with you setting these boundaries. Actually have to hold to the boundaries. Just because you set them for a person, you can't just expect them to abide by them. Just
Mm-mm,
because you set them.
mm-mm.
Setting them is part of the problem, but actually the really
Exactly.
hard part is holding to them, so glad you mentioned that.
Yeah. And I love what you just said because I used to think boundaries were for other people. Like, well, I don't like when this person does this. So I'm going to communicate that to them in a professional, calm manner and do it the right way. And I used to think boundaries were for other people, but they're actually not. They're
Yeah.
for us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when I learned how to have those difficult conversations, whether it was the workplace or just in social circle or in a relationship, I learned to not make it about them because that can be very accusatory. It can come off that way for
Yeah.
someone. And who wants to be approached in a conversation and feel accused?
Yeah.
Nobody.
Yeah.
And so I really learned a lot about how to also communicate, say, hey, this is how I felt about the situation. I understand that was not your intention. And if it was, they'll speak up. But hey,
Yeah.
that was not your intention. But from now on, I would appreciate it if XYZ. And
Yeah.
it's really to protect my heart and my peace to make sure I'm more productive and available and on my A game. And
Yeah.
make it about me.
And you know what I notice we often do when we set boundaries is we give the other person the ownership of our boundary, right? So we'll
Mhm,
set the boundary and
mhm.
then we get upset when they violate it. Like, "Oh my gosh, I said this and then they wanted to go back and forth with me." Or I said this and they just don't understand. Well, it's not their job to understand. Or not worried that this is your boundary. This you said, like you just said, well, you set this boundary for you. So stop giving the ownership away. It's yours. So what is the action after you set the boundary with them? Your job is not to make sure they understand or they agree or they accept it, because oftentimes that's what we're looking for.
Mhm.
Setting boundaries and holding yourself accountable for them isn't about the other person accepting them. It's about
Mhm.
you following through for them with them for you. Yeah.
Exactly, and the consistency is what's key. So if it happens once, okay, but consistency and actually what it does is it builds trust.
Yeah.
It does
Yeah.
build trust, So I love what you
Absolutely.
just said. Yeah.
People learn to accept that this is what to expect when it comes to you. I'm not going to do that with Morgan because or I'm not going to do that with Kiana because this is the expectation, right? And
Right.
I was watching a podcast, Mel Robbins podcast,
Mhm.
and somebody called in and said, how do I stop gossiping? Because I think gossiping is just awful, but I participate. This is what the Q&A person said.
Mhm.
I participate, but how do I stop doing it? And Mel Robbins said something that was it was kind of funny. She was like, "You have legs. You can walk away, right?" So you said she was like, set the boundary, and the boundary is I don't talk about people who aren't in the room. That was her example of setting that boundary, right? But you don't say that and then stay for the conversation. There's something after that, which was the walking away. You set that boundary, and then you show them that this is how I'm gonna hold to this boundary, and I'm gonna keep doing that. So when you come back to that person the next time you're sitting in a conversation with them and they begin to talk about someone, you remind them, "Hey, I don't talk about people who aren't in the room. Walk away." And if it happens enough time and if people don't respect it, then guess what? You got another decision to make. Maybe you shouldn't be in conversation with that person. Maybe you shouldn't be in relationship with that person if they can't respect the boundary.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's so good. I'm gonna have to go watch that
Yeah.
because, other people, they treat us the way we let them.
Yeah.
So if other people assume that I'm gonna be participating in a conversation full of gossip and slander, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. So it's our job to show them what that looks like in a respectful way. Like, hey, I'm not about this. I'm gonna step away. I
Yeah.
love that.
The other thing that you mentioned a couple of times was how your relationship with God showed up. Well, this is what I heard. Your relationship with God showed up in this process, right? You were after church in the car crying out to God. You heard God say some things to you. How do you think that relationship with God has served you in this entire process?
Oh, well, let me tell you. Let me first tell you and tell you all my dirt, okay? When my marriage ended, I was mad
Uh-huh.
at God for about a year.
Yeah.
I was acting like a child. And amen, we're all children of God, but I was acting like a small child. I was not responding maturely. I was so mad.
What were some of the things that you would say in your mind or even out loud that exemplified this anger?
So I'll tell you exactly what it was. As you know, I am now a certified domestic violence advocate and sexual assault advocate. So and this, again, I'm very open with my story, but there was domestic violence in our marriage.
Mhm.
And I wrote it off and I did not say anything and I let it be excused and justified for
Yeah.
years,
Mhm.
as most women do. Because one, where are we going to go? Comes down to the money, comes down to the kids, it comes down to all these factors that you have to seriously sit down and take into consideration before you make your next move. And also, you love the person. I loved him. He was my
Yeah.
husband.
Yeah.
I loved him.
Yeah.
And I go, well, he can change. He takes one step forward, but then he takes 3 steps back. And, and it's like, but as long as he's showing change, there's hope. As long as I had hope, I said, I'm going to stay.
Yeah.
But once it got so bad, my beef with God was this. You said, God, you are my protector. Where were you this day? Where were you May 18th, 2023? That was the worst day in our
Yeah.
marriage. Where were you? What
Yeah.
happened? You said you'd show up. And I was mad at him for about a year. And
Why
so
aren't you protecting me? I
Mhm,
understand. I
mhm,
understand.
mm.
Yeah.
And it took me a minute to really, by minute, I mean about a year, to really come to terms with why he allowed that to happen. And although I didn't feel protected in the moment, long term, long term, the ripple effect was now me being out of the marriage. And so now it's like, my daughter, that's exactly what I was doing. I was giving you a way out.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
it's been a
Yeah.
journey.
Yeah, and I've heard someone say, maybe God said I had to break your heart so you could break away.
Mm,
And the only thing that was gonna make you break away was for you to feel this. Because if I would have made it okay and I would have made you feel good you would have just stayed.
you
You
would have
would have just
stayed.
stayed and continued to stay in a situation that didn't serve you.
Yeah. Oh, that's so
Yeah.
good. And I think too, because again, it's all about us developing ourselves and I think becoming the women that we're designed to be.
Yeah.
And it took that specific marriage, that specific husband, my specific set of weaknesses and strengths, his weaknesses and strengths, the exact children that we had, where we lived, all of it. It took that exact situation to refine me by fire in a way that
Yeah.
nothing else
Mm.
could.
Refine me
And
by
so
fire. Love it.
right, and when you make it out of that, there comes the gratitude. But when you're in it, it's hard to tap into that.
It's like anger. Nothing but anger, boiling anger. But let me tell you, there's nothing wrong with feeling that anger. I
Mm,
feel like the anger actually fueled me after some situations to do better, take care of myself more, achieve more. And so I had this thing that I would say, I should actually thank him. Whoever the
yeah.
him is, whoever bothered me or upset
Mhm.
me, broke my heart. It's like I should actually thank him because
Yep.
without his carelessness, without his griminess, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now. I wouldn't be so fulfilled. I wouldn't have learned how to fulfill myself with God's word and God's promises and make promises to myself and fulfill those. I wouldn't know how to do those if he wasn't such a jerk.
Right. So thank you.
So thank
Yes,
you. Thank
that's
you.
what I'm talking about. I love that.
But in the midst, it's not easy to see all those things because you love the person, and
Yeah.
you still actually love the person even after a lot of times after you've kind of gotten
Mhm,
over the situation or you're in the healing process. I don't know that love just disappears. You just kind of
mhm.
learn to say, "I love myself more." I love you, but I
Yeah,
love myself more, and I get this one life, and this is what I don't want to be loved in the way that you're offering.
yeah, and
That's
there's
not gonna work.
nothing wrong with that. There's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. But even still going through all of these things, people have to show up in other places. So this is the point of
Yeah.
talking about this, right? We're not just here to spill out what happened to us and woe is me and talk awful about these people because we honestly don't even care to talk
No.
awful about these people. This is really
Mm-mm.
about our journey and what that means for showing up every single day at work, in our business, in our finances, for our children, showing up as the leaders that we as women need to be in our lives, but also have all this crap playing in the background. Like you said, like fire in the
Mm.
background, almost feeling like we're being swallowed up, but we
Yeah.
still have to perform,
Mhm,
provide, lead, take care of in other areas of our life. When you
mhm.
decided to make that shift and you decided to begin your healing journey, healing and recovery from what you had gone through, do you feel like the process of letting go made you a better person and served those around you better as well?
Absolutely, absolutely. And the reason I say that is because, again, I was able to do so much introspection of my weaknesses, my mistakes, and I said, "This I don't ever want to do this again. I
Yeah.
never wanna be this version of me again."
Yeah.
And so it was really beautiful to shed off and grow out of a lot of my immaturity, a lot of my lack of communication, all the mistakes I made too along the way, and to really take ownership of those and, use that to serve, whether it was my children, the workplace, my family, anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's something about that personal accountability, right? Because learning from past situations isn't about pointing the finger and saying, this person did all these things to me, and that's it, right? Because there's always, always something for you to learn about you.
Yeah.
There's that self accountability is what's going to make you better for the next time or the next thing. And so I love that you said that about learning what things you did that could have improved, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of the characteristics too, I had to think, okay, at one point I even made a list. Like I just bullet pointed everything out about myself that I was not happy with, about
Mm.
who I became as a person.
Mm.
I kind of had to pinpoint like when did this happen? When did I develop this characteristic? I
Mm.
had to just be real. And I was like, this is what I don't want. This is what I've been doing. And then I made on the right side, was like, this is what I do want. I want
Yeah.
to be joyful. I wanna be more patient. I wanna be, all these qualities that I wanted to be, and then I just started working on them, and I still am.
Yeah, I love these exercises that you're doing. They sound very, very familiar. I got a notebook full of exercises that I'm doing that I often do for myself to
Yeah,
just continue to make myself a better person because that's the ultimate goal is
yeah,
for me to be better. And I think that's also how you come out of the revenge mindset is because the thing is this idea is for me to get better, not to for them to get better because whatever they're doing is what they're doing because they're not over here.
yeah. Exactly,
Well, it really doesn't
exactly.
matter if they get better or worse, because they're
Exactly.
not with me, so it really
Right,
doesn't matter. But there's
right.
someone somewhere, I mean, I know plenty, right? I a few names just popped into my head of people that I know living in toxic places, living in toxic relationships, and feeling like they can't let go. I had one person say that they felt like they were meant for it. I am meant to be in this relationship, and the relationship is clearly toxic.
Mm,
They just can't see it.
mm.
They're toxic, the other person toxic. It's not like pointing a finger at anybody. It's just there's a lot of toxic traits being thrown around in this
Yeah.
relationship, and they're like, "I feel like I'm just meant to be here." What would you say, and what advice would you give to another woman who might be struggling to let go of toxicity?
Mm. When I hear that, it sounds like she has gone through so much in her life, even before this relationship,
Yeah.
that sometimes what our brains start to do neurologically, they create new neural pathways around habitual things. So,
Mhm.
quite literally, the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for decision making and exploring and all of that part of our brain actually shuts off when we're in an emotional coma. That's what I call an
Mm.
emotional coma. We're an autopilot. We're just checked out. We're just living the same life, even if it is toxic, but we're used to it. It's familiar. So our basal ganglia will start to activate and just takes over. So our brains are living on default. So when we've been in traumatic situations for an elongated period of time in our lives, our brains now are wired to do that, to find the next toxic thing because that's what feels familiar. It's how we get stuck in those patterns.
Yeah.
So what I would tell her was, "No, baby, we were not designed to live in toxicity and trauma long term. It's okay if it's a lesson we needed to learn, but we don't God didn't design us to live like that as women. He
Mm-mm.
wants us to be free,
Mm-mm.
happy, confident, safe."
Yeah. Yeah. I love how you mentioned being wired to look for toxicity. If we
Mm,
grew up or had many experiences along the way to this experience and it was a lot of toxicity, it seems normal. Seems really
yeah,
normal. And it's like I feel
mm,
like I'm meant for this. It's almost like what did you experience beforehand that made you feel like this is what it's supposed to be? That's
right.
tragic. It really is tragic. So, understanding that people can be wired for that is kind of a aha moment for me. Also, I love that you shared with us the how you develop these exercises for yourself to kind of bring yourself through to this place where you're able to say, "I'm happier than ever." You know
Mhm.
how many people cannot say that they are happier than ever? When people are able to express that, they can go into situations, into the office, into their business, into a new relationships, a new and transformed person, and their energy will be contagious. And this is what I want to help develop for
Good.
women leaders of today so we can continue to create better working environments and better environments for themselves and for the people that they lead. And the purpose of our
Mhm.
conversations here on the People Power Project is to help people do that so they can stop taking all of this trash and toxic stuff that they are experiencing, allowing themselves to experience outside of work and bringing it in to the workplace.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. And what you're doing, I mean, it's the ripple effect of what you're doing is changing so many people's lives, and the people that really can sit at your feet and learn from you, it's truly it's trailblazing something new.
yeah,
Bringing
yeah.
these two worlds together is really special, and I admire you so much for that.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Thank you. I love that
Mhm.
feedback. I appreciate it. I think I told you before, many people don't always freely offer up feedback in that way, and you often wonder if you're on the right track. But this is definitely a gap that I noticed. I'm like, what is it that people are bringing to work with them that causes them to act this way? And after having life
Yeah.
experiences myself and having to show up to work and act like that didn't happen the night before, or like I'm not just dying inside because I just lost a person that I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life with. Acting like
Mhm.
that's not happening, but still having to come to work and be on my A game. It's like, this
Right.
is how people come to work and they lash out at people, or it shows up as micromanaging, or,
Yeah.
you have a tone, or, you just seem like you're not a happy person. And oftentimes the people that are receiving that, they don't know what you went through. So they can't even connect the dots. They just think you're a jerk at work. And you
Mhm.
could just honestly be going through something. And we want you to be able
Absolutely.
to learn how to go through that thing, recognize you're going through that thing, heal on your way, but also show up to work as with grace and love. Kiana, I want to thank you so much for being here with me today. We could go on and on about this topic, and we'll probably have an opportunity to do it another time. But today, I want you to share with your listeners how they can connect with you.
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me on Instagram or TikTok. The handle is at Hustle with Kiana. And I'm very active in the DMs. So if you message me there, I will see it. I will respond. We can voice note, but you can always find me there on social media.
Absolutely. Thanks again for being here. And I want to leave the listeners with this: heartbreak isn't the end of your story, it's often the beginning of your power. And if you
Mm.
feel like you could use some help and guidance in this area, or if you feel like you can use some help moving forward in your healing while leading journey, join the People Power Project Circles coaching program, Thrive Women's Leadership Coaching, where you'll learn to lead yourself through emotional storms and uncertain seasons like we've been talking about today. We'll talk about processing leadership wins, challenges, and adversity, and continue to design your vision for your next level. So just click the link in the show description and it'll take you to the area where you can join us for conversations on leadership and development and how to continue to lead with love and grace. Or you can just send me an email at contact@morgancareyconsulting.com and sign up today. And if this episode resonated with you, share it with a friend, a coworker, or even your manager. And don't forget to subscribe to the People Power Project podcast for more inspiring and actionable episodes. Follow me on TikTok at the People Power Project and tag me with your thoughts, hashtag People Power Project podcast. Until then, remember that people empowered workspaces are simply the best workplaces. I'll see you next week.